Hey there, welcome to the Reinsurance Podcast, the place where we dive into all things reinsurance, the coolest part of insurance. We're your hosts, Jared and Ben, a couple of ex-practitioners who loved the industry so much we founded Supersede to tackle some of its biggest headaches. And we're here to share our insights and stories with expert guests as we uncover what's really going on in the industry.
Welcome, everybody. Delighted to have with us another special guest today. We've got Tom Spier, newly Chief Commercial Officer for Supersede. Welcome, Tom, to the show again.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you're normally here as our expert on renewal seasons because you've been in the field with clients, or cyber because of your extensive experience in that realm. But this time, we've got you here because you're an expert on you.
I hope I am. I don't know who else.
One of the top five anyway.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, we wanted to dive into, I think most people are maybe not familiar with commercial related functions of software companies in the reinsurance industry. You know, that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, there's a load of them.
Yeah, in itself, but also understanding, you know, what on earth that looks like in terms of how you lead companies of that scale. I think it's always overdue for us to give a refresher on the frantic pace at which Supersede is expanding in the reinsurance market and the successes that are being had there. Anything else we want to cover that I've missed, Jared?
It's a good starting point.
Is that enough? Where should we start?
Let's start with sort of the role you have now, and sort of where we're looking to sort of take our business over the sort of coming couple of years and from that direction.
Yeah, so my job covers three areas, and there's kind of very good reasons why it's three areas. First of those is marketing. Second is new business sales. And the third is our client success unit. And that was very intentional to set things up that way. They're kind of three parts of a go-to-market strategy, which has been tried and tested when you look at companies that sell things to insurance companies, typically. So firstly, there's marketing. A lot of prominence is placed on the brand power of companies that are in our space. If it's somebody that you don't recognize, it's much harder to trust them. So really that area of the business is charged with lighting 1,000 fires, if you like, all around the market, around the world, to make sure that when big industry events are happening, we're one of the people that they're calling up for comment, that our name is kind of seen many times in the day-to-day life of a reinsurance professional, which is very niche, I'm aware, but what we aim for anyway. Second of those that I'll talk about is client success. And when we say client success, that's kind of a weird term. I think lots of software companies have customer success units and customer success departments, which are really kind of an account management type onboarding role. You won't see them until after you've signed a contract with somebody. Our people are much, much more involved than that. And I know you've had Jess on a previous episode, so listeners, please
Success with Jess.
Tune into that one to learn a little bit more about that unit. But really, that's all about creating really, really good experiences with people that are in contact with us. So they're heavily involved in the sales process as well. They're heavily involved in proof of concepts and our initial conversations with clients. And they never really go away, much as sometimes you might want them to, throughout the life of a client. And they're entirely there to make sure that people have a ton of really good, really impactful stories that they can tell about Supersede. Because long term, we know that roughly 80% of our sales are in some way going to come from a referral. Now, that could be a good news referral that kind of we've generated ourselves. That could be somebody's left a company and gone working somewhere else and had a really good experience using Supersede. It could be that somebody who they used to work with is now working with Supersede, and so there's good news stories to share there. So lots of different referrals that are created by that unit. And then finally, we have kind of a traditional sales force, but they're what are known in the software sales game as full cycle account executives, or AEs. And what that means is that they look after every part of the sale, from the initial prospecting with the customer, the initial conversations that they've had. They're out at conferences pressing the flesh, making sure that we are seen and regarded as genuine members of our industry. Typically, they're people that know the insurance or reinsurance industry quite well and can have educated, high-level conversations with people. And then they'll stay with that client from kind of that moment they meet them over a cocktail in Baden-Baden, right through to second, third, fourth, fifth renewal that we do with that customer. So worst thing in the world is when you buy something from somebody and then you don't hear from them again until they want some more money off you. And we try and create an environment where that doesn't happen and that people feel they're well supported, both by the person that's made all those initial promises to them up front, and also by kind of dedicated experts that can help support them and make sure they have those good experiences that we're looking for.
Yeah, I think you see a very obvious dichotomy there between sort of the model where it's like the salesperson who sells you something then leaves, and then the client success person or customer success person that comes in who you've never met, who's now like your person, like, and how sort of jarring that can be and how fundamentally different that is from our approach of like, not only does client success come in super early in the process, but also you also never lose your AE in that process either. So it's like intentionally designed to be like a long-term relationship, which is how relationships exist in our industry anyway.
Exactly. And everyone's a product expert. So that's kind of the thing that binds it together. One of the things that I find, I get tapped up to buy software all the time. And one of the frustrating things that I find about it is you speak to your customer success manager or the person that's looking after you, and you ask them quite a technical question about an integration with another system or how to do this particular edge use case that is a little bit unusual. And you're referred on to some other person then who you've never met before, who kind of wants to take you through a demo and a presentation, things like that. And whereas really all I'm looking for is a quick answer from somebody who knows their system very well and knows roughly what they're talking about when it comes to my industry and what I'm trying to do with it.
And speaking of my industry in this case, because we started with marketing and loads to unpack in all three areas that you highlighted, but how do you even think about at the beginning marketing to reinsurance specifically and the people in that quite contained ecosystem in a world where often they're all kind of blended amongst insurance people?
Well, the other constraint that we had, and that to kind of add to your question a little bit, that we had, and I think you see lots of small startup companies that have, is that actually you're quite resource constrained as well as needing to try and make an impact in a well-established industry where some brands in this industry are 300 years old. So as a new brand, a new word to come into the industry, it's challenging, and we need to be really efficient about it as well. So actually one of the things that we did was start this podcast. And really the idea behind that initially, we didn't expect it to be as successful as it has been. So
absolutely.
Testament to the two of you that it's kind of taken off the way that it has. But
and our glorious guests.
Of course. But the idea behind it was just to create a really efficient content engine. So a way of, because otherwise you see these companies, a lot of companies that sell things into insurance companies, and there'll be like a white paper here or an infographic there that they'll release, and they have to produce all of these pieces of collateral from scratch, as well as the slide deck that's used during every sales meeting or the proposal document that gets sent over, and it's actually very labor intensive to do that. And so the idea behind this was we can use this core content, podcast content, we can film it if you're watching on YouTube, hello. But that we can create everything off of that as kind of a waterfall. So if we need an infographic, if we need a soundbite, if we need information for a white paper, if we need connections to do a bit of research, we can do it all through this vehicle, actually very efficiently, and then reuse it down the track.
Absolutely. And so for me, I guess as well, I loved when it was suggested initially the idea that we're building software for reinsurance because there isn't software in reinsurance, and then it was like, and we're going to do a podcast for reinsurance because there isn't a podcast for reinsurance. It's like this serving that underserved reinsurance community. So I wonder what next. We did suggest
we were all,
a fashion label for reinsurance or
we
something.
were all equally surprised when
Yeah.
the name, the Reinsurance Podcast, hadn't been taken yet.
Yeah, surprised, but then when, I mean, that makes sense. And that was, yeah.
Although there was a reinsurance song, which I still can't get over. Somebody had written a song
Reinsurance
called Reinsurance.
Was it a rap by the?
No, it wasn't.
Who's
No,
the
it
guy
was
who does the
unknown.
raps?
It was not a prominent cyber expert at one of the big brokers, but in fact, no, just a completely random song called Reinsurance.
Did you feel it beat you to the punch? Did you feel like that was your calling, and now you've had that stolen from you?
This podcast isn't about me, Jim.
Oh, but it is.
Well, I mean,
When it first started, I think that was how we got you on board, actually, was
just publishing.
this is the Ben
lots
and
of
Jared show.
unsolicited facts
Think
about
about
my
it.
life. Yeah. If you don't know me by now, as they say. So we talked a bit about marketing and targeting those sort of reinsurance professionals versus the wider sort of insurance world. So hopefully they're drawn like moths to a flame to our reinsurance podcast branding. What else do you think
Hopefully
speaks to them?
that's not really the aim. The aim is really that when we engage them through other channels or when they're ready to explore something in this area, that the brand is not unknown to them. We're not delusional about the power of marketing, particularly in something like reinsurance. Like, if you take kind of the way that most sales come to you, it's kind of referrals, word of mouth, positive experiences. Really what we're asking for from our marketing efforts or our branding efforts anyway, are just to make sure that the brand isn't surprising, the brand isn't new, and the brand isn't scary.
You don't meet Ben and Jared halfway through and go, "Oh my god!" Yeah.
Well, you might still do that.
Yeah.
But they're, once we've achieved that with the marketing, then I think that's really all you can ask for. We've been very fortunate in this company in that we haven't grown the company through product-led growth, but the way the product has grown has been completely informed by client need and by the needs of our prospective clients. And actually that does probably a lot of marketing for us in the fact that we can point to real business problems that insurance companies have had, that reinsurance brokers have had in their operations, or things that are costing them genuine money. The platform isn't just about time saving, really.
Yeah.
In fact, the first time you use it, it takes roughly the same amount of time that your old process took. What it is like moving to a new model that's so much more efficient, so much more powerful, and so much more auditable, that there are genuine, tangible results that come out the back of it. And if it's those kind of product enhancements that really get people hooked, and that's the flame to which the moths come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you give us some examples of the sorts of real problems that are being solved that are getting those moths excited? I'm not going to refer to you as moths anymore, seeded reed people. Apologies, but
I'm honestly tempering the results here, because there are loads that I can't talk. Like we have seen brokerage teams removed from accounts because of mistakes in submissions that we've uncovered and been able to rectify and things like that. And so obviously we're not going to go into any names or anything like that in public, but we can look at some of the features that we've developed and things like that for sure. One of our clients that's quite long standing, and I think they were a third or fourth ever client, is Ascot. And they actually, way back when we did the Lloyd's Lab Accelerator program in 2021, came to us with a really specific problem around policy aggregation and stacking, and how you could kind of horizontally and vertically aggregate large numbers of policies based on any number of factors and do any kind of aggregation with that. And so actually you ended up having to put a really complex set of rules into some software, or usually it was, I think the way that it was done before was you'd start off with an Excel spreadsheet and a pivot table, but then you usually have to build some rules into other software like Power BI or something like that to actually manipulate the data in the right way. Or you'd have to have several sheets of formulas to kind of reference where different policies went and assign them different IDs and things like that. Like what you're effectively doing there is writing a small computer program within Microsoft Excel that then has to be rewritten for every reinsurance program that you buy. And so we thought, well, we have a computer program that deals with purchasing reinsurance programs, so we should just build it in there, which is what we did. And it's one of the most powerful features today that people use. So it's like, just taking the time to explore where those problems are has really been impactful for us.
Yeah, and you mentioned before the role that our clients and prospects play in like what we build, but the thing that's been really exciting is watching the sort of alignment on those pain points and needs across clients. Like, oh, we all have this thing, and there's like this sort of like little chanting army of we also need this thing fixed, and like they all want it to be better because they're all wrestling with it. They're all doing the same categorical work, and they're all facing the pain that comes with it in that current way.
But it's funny, the idea that the problems are the same is always news to everybody the first time they experience it. So when we first engage with an insurance company that we want to work with, or that's has some problems that they think we might be able to help them solve, then we'll speak to them at length about these problems, and most of the time they will take up telling us how unique they are, how bespoke their data is, why these problems occur because of the unique way that their insurance company is structured or how their insurance company has historically grown. And then they get to the end of the sentence and we say, well, we've got 4 other clients that have that problem. So this is how we approach it with them, and this is how we recommend solving it. And by the way, there's a couple of features that are in development at the moment that can also further help with this problem. And they're very skeptical to start with. But it genuinely does work like that because, as you say, people are usually trying to do roughly the same thing. And actually, a lot of the data requirements in the industry historically have been led by underwriters in hard market conditions, which is largely where we're sitting now in most lines of business. And so, of course, the problems with getting pricing actuaries exactly what they want to see is going to be something that's common across people. And I think the way that we initially built out the PACS module within Supersede speaks to this a lot. The fact that in the very, very earliest days, we went and spoke to as many pricing actuaries as we could with a single question, basically, of how do I get a reinsurance submission that I give you from the bottom of your pile to the top of your pile, because you actually want to deal with it. And if we keep that as our singular focus, then we'll continue to make really, really good business impacts.
Yeah. And have you seen similar things on the deals side in terms of the way of engaging with customers? I'm keen to get some of your philosophies out here.
The way that we engage with customers is really, really similar. But the product evolution has been completely different, right? Because what we had with deals was an electronic placement platform, similar to PPL or Whitespace. There are some nuances to it. It's much better at handling some of the complexities and nuances around reinsurance deals. It didn't require 2 parties to sign up. But inherently, placement technology has been done. I think there was a thought about, well, could it be kind of a marketplace where you can match capacity with the need for capacity? Again, the answer to that was met with a resounding no. Brokers know roughly what markets they want to send information out to. Cedents are very, very particular around who underwrites their reinsurance treaties. And so that wasn't a route to go down. But what was weird is that reinsurance is like the definition of an insurance purchase by an educated party. It's an insurance company buying insurance, literally. And so the fact that no placing technology had actually taken the customer into account and let the customer participate in their purchase before was a light bulb moment for us. And that enabled us to start creating products that really resonated with somebody.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, we think you should have something to do with this deal, is something that was, responded to very, very positively.
Yeah, and that came about as well by talking to clients, right? The earliest versions, the feedback broadly was the brokers will do what they want. Clients do not really care how the broker goes about the process. And so we started talking to the clients like, oh no, we have all these adjacent problems around managing our former term approvals and our sign-offs and our audit trails and everything else. And it really matters that we can see the movement of deals as they're happening. And you're like, okay, so hang on a second. The clients actually fundamentally care. Like they might not, they haven't historically sought out a way to fix that, but now that one's available, they're like, oh, this actually matters incredibly to us. It's fundamental to how we think about the way we're going to manage all the deals we're buying at a renewal season, which is everything all at once kind of chaos, and you realize that they face a huge amount of burden keeping on top of it all.
And I think that the attitude of vendors of technology or inventors of systems, architects of systems, was to treat them like you buying your car insurance every year. It's like you don't really want to do it. You have to give some information, so you do. But then you largely leave it between the broker and the underwriter, and that just doesn't reflect reality.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's sort of central to our theme there is like the creation of records that are shared across parties, that people can like go, oh, we're all on this deal, like versus the historical model being like everyone has their own database of their friends. Right. And like and what we're creating is like, oh, we all are actually all friends. So we can have a shared space that like when someone updates their phone number, we all see the updated phone number. Like it's this sort of shared model of sure, access and security and all of those permissions is super critical to a model like that. But it's a source of, oh, that's a deal we all are on. Here's the information to it. And making sure we can send that via API to systems that it's needed in and those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess just digging into the philosophy and your leadership now as Chief Commercial Officer as well, how do you continue to keep that virtuous cycle going whereby, the client success teams, the account execs, etc., getting those insights, working on those insights with customers so that the product keeps on bringing those customers what can really help them most?
I think as both you two will know very well, largely if you can get a vision that people really believe in, and you can get a team that's better than you in every way, which I'm really fortunate to have, then the continuation of that cycle becomes actually quite easy to keep the flywheel spinning. You need to acquire some customers to get some more customers. That will always be the case in our industry when you provide services or tools or technology to insurance companies. The most powerful marketing you will ever have is a deal that you've done with another insurance company, particularly an insurance company that looks a bit like the one that you're targeting next, or that is interested. So if you have people that deeply care about the vision and what we're trying to do, people that are bought into the way that we're trying to do it, and don't try and reinvent that so often, then the methodology will pay off. This is an industry where selling things to people takes a really long time. We experience sales cycles that, if you speak to fintech companies, they'll talk to you about long sales cycles of 8-9 months. You can probably double that when it comes to selling solutions into insurance companies. And software is actually not bad compared to some other things to get into, like new product solutions into insurance companies, 3 years easily to get that in. So because of those long sales cycles, you really have to have faith in the go-to-market strategy, and you need to stick with it for a long time, because if it doesn't work, you're not going to find out for a really, really long time. And if it does work, you're going to be waiting around forever for the strategy that does work to actually kick in. So you need to have faith in it yourselves. You need to be in an organization where the owners of the company and the people that run the company, the directors, the investors, the board, understand that and can get behind that. And then you need to have conviction and commitment to the strategy as well.
Absolutely. And you talked about those long sales cycles, and I guess part of that comes not just from insurance companies being naturally quite risk-averse organizations, but also because a lot of the time, the kind of teams that we need the buy-in from to get the software to them are very busy people, and we have to have a model that respects that, especially with various renewal seasons throughout the year. How do you adapt to the renewal seasons that plague the long evenings of many people, especially during the winter?
Yeah, there's a few factors that kind of delay things, as you've covered a few of them. Insurance companies being typically risk averse. The seasonal nature of reinsurance certainly doesn't help, given that that there's kind of most need for the product that we provide, usually in like a 4 to 5 month window of the year, and if you miss that window, then it's kind of okay. We'll try again next year, and by then that's a year down the line in sales cycle. There's also the fact that where we're working with frontline broking teams or data and analytics teams within brokers or seeded rebuying teams. These are individuals within an organization that actually very rarely buy software. And so sometimes they just don't know how to do it. They've never done it before. They don't understand what the procurement process is, how much IT does or doesn't need to be involved in vetting new software, what the legal ramifications are, when or how or who does data privacy investigations or surveys, and then sometimes they're a little bit afraid to ask as well, because they don't want to be embarrassed or look like an idiot. And so we need to be really proactive in how we explain that we've been through these processes before, and usually it's a good idea to do this and this bit first. And I think really that's what I mean by having the full cycle AE model. It creates kind of a trusted advisor relationship, because they may not have bought any reinsurance before in their lives. They've been close to the industry and know what you're talking about and know largely what you're trying to achieve. They have sold a lot of software. So you can trust them in knowing how to go through that purchase process, as well as we go through our sales process.
Yeah. Well, we've certainly had some clients that had to miss at least one renewal season or a portion of a renewal season in the past, and they've always articulated like real frustration that they had to do it one more time the painful way before we came in. What would be some like top tips, if you will, to like for those people to help get something through more quickly, so that they don't have like, I didn't know the IT team had to come and do this, and therefore I had to do it one more time the painful way before Supersede came in for this, the next renewal? What would be top tips for that team to get something over the line more quickly?
So there's really one thing that buyers of software who aren't really familiar with buying software before need to do, and that's spread the load. And I mean that in a few different ways. But first thing is, if there's somebody that's higher than you that has to make a final decision on whether the technology should be purchased or not, actually get them involved earlier. A lot of people are frightened of getting somebody senior to them involved early because they don't want to look silly in front of their boss. And that's perfectly understandable. But if you waste multiple hours evaluating the software and then you bring your boss in and your boss immediately says no, then you've just wasted everybody's time and you look like more of an idiot. So it makes sense to bring them in early. Same thing with procurement processes and IT security and legal. They get familiar with those processes by asking those people that are involved. There's some people that we've worked with in the past. They only knew the IT security person because they got on the same train at the same train station as them to come into London every day. And they kind of managed to wander down the platform and have a quick chat with them. But because they were happy to do that, it actually made the process much smoother for them, because a lot of the pre-work had been done. And then kind of the final thing I'll say on spreading the load is, when it comes to making a business case, speak to the vendor that you're working with about that. Honestly, I have written, everybody in my team has written hundreds of business cases. We have written multiple tens of business cases for the specific products that we are bringing to market today. We know what this should look like. We can advise you, we can help you, we can spread that load. A lot of people take on that burden all to themselves because they feel like this is something that they are pitching for internally. And actually, they might completely misrepresent the bit of the value proposition that's going to resonate to a COO or a CRO or a CEO or a CUO, depending on who you're pitching to and what that chain of command looks like and what that committee that's making the decision looks like. So again, loads of people are around to help you, and so don't feel you have to suffer in silence and on your own with these things.
Yeah. So you mentioned an ever-growing amount of experience writing those business cases. How is business? What's Supersede looking like in the market at the moment, and where do you see it going over the next several months? Pick a time span to your preference.
It's going exceedingly well. In summary, I think we issue a lot of reports fairly regularly on how much people are using our platform, and that is the thing that we care about. We care that we're making an impact in the market. We care about the proportion of market share that we can serve on the platform. We care about the number of customers that we have. And so those are the stats that we'll release most of the time. We don't normally talk about our own revenue, but that grew by 5 times in the last year, which is mad growth.
Quite a lot.
And we should be very, very proud of that, because after it enables us to grow faster, it enables us to have a bigger team, it enables us to pay people well and have good resources and do all of those things. It's the building blocks to a business. And we should take a bit of time to celebrate that from time to time, as much as the industry impact is probably what you'll hear us talking about a lot more in the future. We're ambitious about what we do with that increased revenue as well. We're talking about the product getting better, so I know there'll be a decent amount of investment there. We have roadmap discussions with customers all the time. If you want to, then please drop me a line on LinkedIn or tom@supersede.com. We'll be happy to talk about the plans that we have. But we'll also be looking at making sure that we continue to have a team that's based in reinsurance, that has its core full of reinsurance expertise, and we continue to be part of this industry that we care so much about changing and enhancing and working with. That's very important to us, as well as having more people and more clients and more influence in the market.
That sounds brilliant. And with that, I think we might have to end, sadly. But Supersede, the reinsurance platform, here on the Reinsurance Podcast with Tom Spier. Thank you so much for coming on the show again, Tom.
Good to see you.
Thanks as always.
Thanks for tuning in to the Reinsurance Podcast. If you enjoyed our show, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review to let us know how we're doing, preferably 5 stars. For more insights and updates, follow us on LinkedIn and visit our website at supersede.com/podcasts. You'll find the links in the show notes.